Hello, I'm John Feldt. This is the weekly water outlook briefing recorded on February 10th, 2013. Well, it's been a pretty active week over parts of the nation. Probably the biggest precipitation story was the blizzard over the parts of the northeast U.S. I'll be talking about that in just a bit. Bit of rain over the southeast U.S., but again, over much of the middle part of the nation, generally either light amounts of precipitation or quite dry. Areas in yellow were the heaviest amounts of rainfall, and you can see that occurred over parts of southern Georgia into South Carolina, along the immediate coastline as well, the eastern coast. Now, if we look at areas of above or below normal precipitation, the above normal precipitation is in areas of blue and purple. Below normal precipitation is in areas of red. No real big trend over the eastern half of the nation, areas of blue and red sort of close together. But I think you can see over the western half of the U.S. over the last week, the trend was definitely below normal rainfall over the vast majority of the region. Now, of course, the big story was the northeast U.S. snowfall. Wanted to point out here the water equivalent of this snow. It was a wet snow, and the area in purple there from Connecticut up to Maine is well over 2 inches. So there is going to be the possibility of localized urban flooding and some main stem flooding perhaps over parts of the northeast U.S. once this snow begins to melt. Now, if we look at a national perspective of snow, this is snow depth. You can see the areas that snow that is covered, and it's creeped up a bit in the graph over the bottom part of this image. You can see that the latest coverage of snow is right around 50% here. It's been creeping up. Basically, it was in the 40s over the last couple weeks, and with the additional snow, the coverage of snow across the U.S. is now up to a little bit above 50%. Now, water equivalents are very important for the potential for flooding, and the darker shades here, especially if we get into the purple, but we're beginning to see some pockets of more significant soil or snow water equivalent. Look at all the snow water equivalent from this event. You can even see some of that brighter purple here. So very significant amounts and streaks and areas of high snow water equivalent in that region, but also beginning to get some pockets of higher values in this region as well. This has sort of been a hot track of the last couple months across the upper Midwest, parts of North Dakota, smaller parts of South Dakota, large parts of Minnesota into Wisconsin, and then the Great Lakes states. Now, last week, this was the snow that fell last week. The light amounts of snow are in that maroon color, and the heavier amounts are in the green, and the heaviest amounts are in the blue. And you can see, as I mentioned, the Great Lakes states up into the northeast U.S. was the real hot spot. Definitely the blizzard over the northeast U.S., a record-setting historic blizzard, was definitely the area of most interest over the last week. Okay, a quick review of the Arctic Oscillation. This is the one that's been the most active over the last month or so. And right now, after a stint in the positive territory here we go positive, it's pretty much neutral here, and it looks like it's going to stay somewhat neutral, and then we get into the latter part of February, maybe get back into the positive. But this is a little bit different pattern. This pattern we're seeing here is probably a different pattern than we saw for much of the earlier part of the winter when we had this really long spell of mainly negative phased Arctic oscillation. Right now, it looks like it's much more of a neutral to maybe even a slightly positive or a slightly negative phase as we get through the rest of February. Now, I want to review vulnerabilities as we stand right now. We have vulnerabilities for persistent drought, and that's the area of red here. We have much below normal soil moisture anomalies. We also have a corridor here of enhanced or wet soils, and you can sort of see that in this region right here, and that is a vulnerability for the potential for flooding should we get heavy rain. Also up here in the northeast U.S. with that snow, I think that's another area of potential flooding once that melts. So we have vulnerabilities now both on the dry side and on the wet side. So we look at the big picture this week. As we start early this week, that's the jet stream in blue. And what we're going to have here, we're going to have several pockets of energy. I've sort of indicated one of them in red here. and that's going to be digging out into the eastern U.S., and eventually by the end of the week, this will be the jet stream position. Each one of these pockets of energy will be rotating through here and providing an enhanced source of energy that will provide rain. So we are going to be expecting a multi-day rain event over parts of the southeast U.S. and mid-Atlantic states as each one of these little impulses pushes off to the east. That's going to be the story this week. Okay, so here's the rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. Pretty quiet over much of the central part of the U.S. Now, the precipitation here in Oklahoma, that's going to form in the form of snow in that region's rain or snow. So there could be some problems in there. But I think the big event this week is going to be over the southeast U.S. This area in red is going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. Now, this area is very dry in here, so in many areas it's going to be a welcome rain. On the other hand, if it pushes up a little bit further north, that could be a threat of flooding. And I think with even parts of Mississippi, parts of Alabama have been much wetter than areas further east in Georgia and South Carolina. So there definitely is a possibility of some flooding in those regions. In fact, this is the current depiction of some of the flood watches, and that's the orange shaded regions, and this is the outlook for some of the possibilities for flooding. And yellows and oranges are more of the within bank, strong within bank action stage or minor flooding. So right now it looks like it's going to be more of a scattered minor flood event, and that's what you would expect in February. Now, each time we get more rain, the potential is a little bit higher. There will be some possibility of maybe a little bit more flooding, perhaps some very isolated moderate, but I really think this looks like a more of an action stage or minor, typically what you'd see in February. Now, over the next couple weeks, as we get into the middle part of the month, up to the 17th of February, I wanted to point out that soil moisture is expected to improve over this area of the southeast U.S. that's in blue. Now, that's significant over parts of this area because it looks like this area right here, parts of the ACF River Basin, parts of Georgia, parts of the middle and lower Savannah River Basin are very, very dry, and this could really help the drought situation in that region. It's not going to eliminate the drought, but that rainfall, that recharge of upper soil moisture is going to be very welcome in that region. So the next couple weeks, I wanted to point out that week 1 is on the top image here, week 2 is on the bottom image, and it does look like for much of the rest of February, the action for precipitation is going to be over the southeast U.S., parts of the Tennessee River Valley into the mid-Atlantic states, both in week 1 primarily, but also in week 2. I think there's also that pattern of enhanced snowfall up into the Great Lakes into the northeast will continue as well. And if you look at the western U.S., most of the western U.S., it looks pretty dry, both week 1 and parts of week 2, although there are some areas here that could bring some enhanced rainfall in week 2. But that's out there. We'll have to just sort of wait and see how that turns out. Okay, so the trends and threats for the upcoming week. First of all, let's start with the dry trends. It looks like most of the middle part of the nation will be dry. I've outlined in areas of blue of some snow, and you can see right there in Kansas and Oklahoma, that'll be a welcome recharge event. Some snow up in the northern part of the U.S. in Minnesota, which has been getting snow into the Dakotas. That, again, will be useful for the most part, alleviating drought conditions. And then over the southeast U.S., and the most significant mention in that area I have in brown, the persistent soil moisture anomalies, very dry soils, and look at the wet weather right on top of that. So that's going to be a welcome rain in that area. Even if it would get 4 inches of rain, I think flooding would just be very scattered and isolated. For the most part, that's going to just sort of soak up that rain. So the takeaway points, this looks like a multi-day rain event over southeast U.S. with a chance of some scattered flooding. I think it's going to be some urban flooding, flash flooding, just scattered minor main stem river flooding, building snowpack over the Great Lakes, and continued dry over most of the southwest U.S. I will be covering the heavy rain over the southeast U.S. throughout the week, so stay tuned. If not, I will be updating the weekly water outlook next Sunday. Thank you for listening.